Intensive efforts by your forces. Where have you been able to push the Russians back?
Good morning, and let me first of all thank you for this interest. We are really started to take control over one of the small towns around Kiev, which was occupied almost 3 weeks ago. National police started to work in this town. Unfortunately, we cannot provide a lot of details because it's ongoing process, and some achievements can be destroyed next day, but I can confirm that we have a progress around Kiev to limit the presence of army of Russia in our suburbs of capital. But at the same time, there are huge army around still, and we fight for our freedom every day and every night. Today, Kiev was bombed again, and unfortunately, they destroyed some small buildings, small houses, and apartment buildings, and trade center again.
We understand from U.S. and NATO officials that there are signs that Belarusian forces could soon enter this conflict. How much of a difference would that make?
Motivation of Belarusian forces is so low that it's a challenge for Lukashenko, the leader of this territory, how he presents himself, that he's in troubles to fulfill the obligation in front of Putin he has, because for today, Belarusian forces not really well trained, demotivated, and they are like just the way for Putin to continue attack against Ukraine. They have no reason to participate in this fight. They have very limited train experience, and if they come here to Ukraine, they're gonna be killed, of course, because Ukraine gonna defend our territory for 1,000%. That is why I believe Lukashenko in this process of maneuvering from one side to fulfill his obligation in front of Putin, from another side not to enter Ukraine as Putin wants, because it can have a problem for Lukashenko himself in Belarus, because Belarusian people don't understand the motivation. They see how many Russian soldiers coming back killed from Ukraine to Belarus, because they have a center for killed Russian soldiers in Gomel, not far away from Ukrainian border, and all Belarusians see these non-stop caravans of military cars full of Russian soldiers killed in Ukraine. It's more than 15,000 Russian soldiers killed on our territory. It's more than in two Chechen wars. It's more than in Afghanistan war in Soviet time. It's more than American army lost in Iraq. So it's for Belarusian just a nightmare to come here. That is why we still hope that Lukashenko will take into account that it can be the deadlock for himself as well.
Vladimir Putin's spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, was speaking to our Christiane Amanpour and refused to rule out the use of nuclear weapons against what he called an existential threat to Russia. How much does this concern you, that he wouldn't rule out the use of nuclear weapons?
It concerns our government, and it concerns myself personally, because in the office of president, I'm responsible for counter-propaganda efforts of Russia, and I see every day dozens of messages from different Russian stakeholders with blaming against Ukraine, that Ukraine prepare chemical weapons or nuclear bomb. They make this statement every day, and of course it's fake. It has nothing to do with reality, but how much they said this, it's just the example that they are preparation of something from their side, like false flag operation or argument for Russia to use chemical or nuclear weapons against Ukraine, because there is no another reason to have this non-stop messaging from different stakeholders, different sources, official, Putin himself, Lukashenko himself, Lavrov himself. All of them said that Ukraine preparing chemical weapons, which is not true, but they repeat it many times. For what reason? Just is as argument for their brutal war against now, which is going on almost a month, or to prepare something very horrible against Ukraine and to use this as an argument, as they did it before in Syria. That is why I believe the whole world has to raise the voice and to say Putin that he has stopped. It's not a joke. Chemical weapons or nuclear weapons, especially against Ukraine, which has the number three nuclear military sources in the world after the collapse of the Soviet Union. We were number three country with nuclear weapons in the world. And then we signed this Budapest Memorandum. Russia was one of the guarantors in this Budapest Memorandum. Now we see the war of Russia on our territory. It's a moment for the whole world to understand that it's not just Ukrainian-Russian war, it's a global war. Unfortunately to say this, especially for Americans who are far away from here, but I believe the goal of Putin is not just to occupy Ukraine, but to destroy the whole global order, to destroy NATO as an institution to defend members of NATO. And if Ukraine done, Putin gonna go further to Poland, to Baltic countries, all these countries under the permanent threat now. That is why we call the whole world to support Ukraine in this war.
Sergei Lashenko, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. I know how
Thank
busy
you.
you are. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
This morning, President Biden leaves the U.S. on a high-stakes trip to Brussels to attend meetings with NATO and European allies. The president